comment on, kind of old school on radios. I agree with you. I like knobs just from a speed perspective and that tactile feel, especially with CW and contests and such. I don't like clicking buttons 3 times just to get to a different set of menus. But it's got its place, it just is. The thing is, with all the SDR, there's no reason why we can't have all the buttons we want. It's just not really been a focus. I really don't know why they as in the manufacturers, haven't. They've done some, right? But like I wish they would just reproduce, the class. And some of them are now, right? ICOM, I guess, is doing some, but like just find a way to totally do SDR without breaking the bank and get all of the features and all the buttons. I'm sure I'm not asking for much. AF5D from Kilo Mike 5 Lima.
Kilo Mike 5 Lima, Alpha Foxtrot 5 Delta. No. Yeah, that's the beauty of the technology. Got rid of everything right there, but still have something. Kind of like automation here and there. Yeah, I'm still have my pedal right there on a CW, even though I probably probably forgot 50% of that after a pause for several years. When I got my general, they still required the CW receiving and sending, and even for my technical technician back in my country on the YP land, they required 5 words per minute at that time, sending and receiving. So love to play that, but not really into that. So sometimes I play, sometimes I can hear that, but lately just several years past, I just totally forgot. Probably 50% of that is already gone. So if I want to go into that, I got to learn some more. I still have that tape from whoever produced the tape for the training when I got when I obtained my general. I got to listen to everything right there. But yeah, it's gone now. Go ahead.
Well, if you operated very much, I doubt you've forgotten as much as you think you do. Kind of like riding a bike. So anyway, okay, I've got your page up. So very good. Originally from Indonesia and all. Awesome. Yeah, I've got plenty of Indonesian QSL cards from many years back. So that's all good. Well, good. Yeah, you've got the 950. Yep, there, and a couple other things. So anyway, okay. Bayu, I've got a guy that wants me to return his call, so it's awful nice to meet you, and glad we got to hook up here on the 8.8. It doesn't get that much activity on conventional FM, so glad we got to exercise the transistors tonight, and it's certainly nice to meet you. Look for you down the log. 73 AF5D from Kilo Mike 5 Lima, and all these listening to your final.
Well, thank you for it, Patrick and SQSO. Hope I can catch you again down the log. Yeah, usually right here on 8.8. Sometimes playing around on some other repeater, but mostly on the 8.8. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll catch you sometimes later. KM5L Patrick from Alpha Foxtrot 5 Delta 73. Bye-bye.
Good night, Bayu, KM5L.
W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
And does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin tonight's Skynet? use. More Mars interference. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom. I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become familiar with nighttime and daytime sky astronomy and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break, very enthusiastically, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? Please come now. This is a directed net, so please do not transmit without direction from World Net Control. That would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of their transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency with a PL tone of 110 decimal niner. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topic, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is W5FC.org right now for a complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome, and you need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is approximately 90 minutes long and is structured in these parts. We have general announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, space exploration and space history, What's Up and Constellation of the Week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A in the 73 round. Depending on time, we may not get to every section, but we'll get to all the important ones. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So let's go ahead and start with round one, which is low power short time check-ins. If you're one of those, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low power short time. Okie dokie, didn't hear anything, so we'll go to general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
Alpha Foxtrot 5, Tango X-Ray, BJ in Crandall.
This is Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric in Plano.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth.
This is Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert Richardson.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, change, however.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda and DeSoto.
Kilo India 5, Juliet Kilo Lima, Yasen in Fort Worth. Kilo India 5, Gulf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas.
All right, it's a pretty good healthy check-in. I'm going to need a couple of fills, but I think I got mostly everybody. I've got K5KTX, Miss Kelly Quinlan, K5JHH, Az Mesquite, AF5TX, DJ Crandall, KE5, Eric, I messed up, over in Plano, KE5 something November, could you give me your call again?
Kilo Echo 5, Echo November, Eric in Plano.
Okay, thank you, Eric. KE5EN. I've got K5ANP, that's Alan in Dallas. NV5F, Virginia in Fort Worth. AA5AH, Robert Richardson. KG5W, Victor Lima, that's James in Carrollton. NT5TM, Tony, Dallas. K5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch. KG5BZW, that's Jay near Weatherford. He's over RF tonight. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto. I've got KI5JKL Eosif. Did I get your call right and where you at tonight?
How's it going? It's Yasen, and it's KI5 Juliet Kilo Lima in Fort Worth.
This is?
KI5JKL, Yesif in Fort Worth. I've got KI5GRH, Miss Melissa in Dallas. I'll take additional check-ins now. Please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is? Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill, Central, Irving.
Kilo Golf 5, Alpha, Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Oscar Mike Romeo, Marcia in Dallas.
More on that one. I got W5GUS, that's Gus in far northeast Dallas, N5DB, Bill in Central Irving, Texas, that is. KG5PPL, Patrick in Dallas. Did I do that right, or did I stutter while writing?
Maybe a little bit of both. It's KG5 Alpha Papa Lima.
Thank you, Patrick. I should have recognized the call. So I got KG5APL, Patrick in Dallas, and I got KG5OMR, Marcia in Dallas. Any additional over air before I go to Echolink? Over air, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Hearing none, let me move over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and you'd like to join by voice, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Here we go, Echolink only.
Mike, Bravo, Charlie, Shane, but no Bethany tonight. She's at the grandparents' house. Blue Springs, no traffic.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy in Sherman.
Oh, 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in far, far, far North Texas, actually in Norman, Oklahoma.
Okay, very good. Let's see. I've got, one more thing here. There we go. Springs. Well, I got W0MBC. That's Shane with no Bethany from Blue Springs, Missouri. I've got K5PDS, Miss Billy in Sherman. I got K5JDW, John in about as North Texas as you can get, Norman, Oklahoma. N5IMS, JJ over in Carrollton. He came in over the chat window. Anyone else, any mode, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Whiskey 5, Lima, Tango, Zulu, Matt in Crowley.
One more out of that. I got W5LTZ, Matt, over in Crawley. All right, we'll come back to additional check-ins a little later. So that's pretty healthy. It's 24 check-ins on the first round. Not bad at all. Let's see. Let's start. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest in licensed hams. Please come out. Well, it's a large but quiet group this evening. Okay. I'll go ahead and give the quick announcements here. The AMSAT Amateur Radio Satellite Group. There's 2 nets available on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered on Echolink. You can find the net under Groups and at AMSAT, A-M-S-A-T, under the group sections. You can also go to amsatnet.com. This net originates out of Houston, Texas, talks about amateur satellite as well as space interest as well, which is one of the reasons why we bring it to the net each week. Also, we have a Dallas local net of AMSAT. This is every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater. That's at 147.140 megahertz with a field tone of 110.9er. This is a positive offset. Please don't forget the DARC and all its nets, including Monday evenings, which is alternate nets between the first and fifth Monday. If there is a fifth Monday, first week is Ham Fixins. It's a cooking net. Second week is MCOM 101, which is emergency communications and how you can get involved. You don't have to be a member of any group or part of a served agency. But if you are one of those people, please come to the net to answer questions. Third week is Ham Fixins, our second serving. Fourth week is GeekNet, which is anything having to do with electronics besides amateur radio, although most of our questions do end up being amateur radio. And the fifth week is a mystery net. Who knows what that'll be? None this month, though. Don't forget Saturdays is the night of net. If you have tuned in later and you don't know about this, we do have at 7 o'clock That would be our TechNet from 7 to 8. From 9 until 10:30 is Skynet, which is what you're on right now. And from 10:30 until 1 is the Afterglow Movie Net. I'll give that information in just a minute, by the way. The ARRL net is a National Traffic System Training Net, which is every night of the week, rain or shine, at 6:30 p.m. to around 7. Everyone is welcome to check in if you'd like to learn about formalized traffic handling. This is the net to be a part of, because whether it's on HF, VHF, UHF, you'll learn everything there is to know about how to conduct yourself on a net, as well as move message traffic. And now for the Afterglow Movie Net synopses. These I highly pride myself in being very accurate. So here we go. The parakeet climbed around the house unimpeded. In the background, the sound of a TS-2000 transceiver. One can hear the 13 Colony Special Event Contest droning QSL signals reports every 10 seconds or so, but no one was listening in the house. The bird had no interest in that, of course. In fact, it had managed to customize the microphone on said TS-2000 as a bit of an entertaining animal axiom, retribution for being ignored by its overseer, absent from the house. The bird jumped from its perch and onto the coffee table below. Off to the side were two remotes. The bird had learned to manipulate them both, one to the television, the other to the DVR device. It was easy to see, even to this bird, both devices were ready to provide entertainment only a small small-brained animal might find entertaining. The screen came to life, and the name George Lucas shimmered into focus. It was a color movie, devoid of spaceships, empires, John Williams music, and instead presented only a duck, a talking one at that. But not just any duck. This bird from our world was ready to observe the bird from another world. What would it learn? Join us for the next Afterglow movie, Howard the Duck, from 1986, I think. It says 5. I think it's 6. Tonight at 10:30 p.m. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Oh, and I will mention there is the Lunch Bunch net that begins at noon today. It can use some participation. I know folks are looking for it at 10 o'clock. It has moved to noon, so if you would like to get involved, since a lot of folks have been going back to work or otherwise being indisposed during the 10 o'clock net, come by at 12. It's the same folks. We just need more of them. This is KE5ICX. I'm your net control for tonight, Skynet. Next up is the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you might someday be able to look through a telescope. Does anybody on frequency want to talk about Texas Astronomical Society? Please come out.
KF5 JHA.
All right, Chaz, you're a pretty stellar guy over at Texas Astronomical Society. Tell us about the organization and what's going on from KE5ICX.
Well, it was nice of you recognizing me as a star. Thank you so much. Okay. The Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas next meeting is going to be on July the 24th. That's a Friday. We'll meet at 7:30. Although you can log in on Zoom. It's a Zoom meeting. It's a virtual meeting before then, maybe as early as 7 o'clock. Our featured speaker is going to be Amanda Bayless from the Southwest Research Institute. And I believe her topic is probably going to be on spacecraft, maybe even on a Martian spacecraft. By the way, it's a virtual meeting, and so parking will not be a problem. Hopefully, the Texas Astronomical Society will resume face-to-face meetings sometime, and maybe we'll be able to have public observing sessions again after all this shelter-in-place is over. If you want to find more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, you're welcome to visit their website, texasastro.org, for details. Back to you. This is KF5JHA.
Thank you, Jazz. Does anybody have any questions? Please come out. Okay, next up is National Space Society events and activities. That's usually handled by Bill, N5BB. Bill, what do you have for us this week from KE5ICX?
Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. Well, as with nearly all other organizations, National Space Society of North Texas chapter is meeting virtually now rather than in person due to COVID-19. Our July meeting is tomorrow afternoon. The presentation starts at 4 p.m. If anybody's interested in the National Space Society, joining the meeting, you could visit our meeting if you wanted to as a visitor. You can contact me, N5BB, Bill Byram, and for space-related things, my email is space@byram.net. That's SPACE at BYROM, as in man, .net. The National Space Society has been doing a lot of national online events. Big one coming up is this coming Thursday, July 16th. It will be a day in space 2020. And there will be things going on pretty much all day long. Local time here, events start at 10 a.m. Central Time, and the last event starts at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And you will be able to go and listen to Buzz Aldrin. That's right, our remaining Apollo 11 astronaut that landed on the moon in 1969. And Dr. Shauna Pandya, she's a physician, science, and aquanaut. Steve Jurvetson, who is a venture capitalist and space futurist. Carlton Johnson, the chairman of the National Space Society Board of Governors. And many other people like Dr. Alan Stern, who is a planetary scientist, and Rob Manning, who is the chief engineer for JPL, and many other people. So lots of things going on. Anybody can attend this. If you want to find out more, go to the National Space Society homepage. That is nss.org, and right up there in the middle, in the top, you will see July 16, a day in space. Click here, and then you'll be able to see the schedule, see how you can see it, which includes E360 TV live, Roku, and I think some other streaming services. So that's the big thing coming up here. Just a couple days ago, I listened to a very interesting presentation for National Space Society members by a guy who is in Hawaii, and he has set up he was independently wealthy because of some money he made in gaming software. And just like a lot of other high technology things, he's now jumping into space. And he lives in Hawaii. He has a big ranch up on the side of a mountain. And he has what am I trying to call these? some environments, sealed environments with airlocks, which they're using to train, to discover things and train people on how to get along with each other and operate when going to the moon or Mars. And he's serious about this. I mean, they're very serious about everybody's wearing some kind of thing like a spacesuit. You have to get in and out of the airlock so they can see if there's any leaks. They're looking at the food, how people get along with each other, what they have to do, how they get bored, how they communicate with the outside world. They're putting in delays. They're doing all these kind of transmission delays, doing a lot of things. So, anyway, the guy doing this is Henk Rogers, Henkrogers. You might look him up. It's real interesting things he's doing there in Hawaii. That's all I have right now in 5BB.
Well, thank you, Bill, and that sounds very interesting. The part on NSS.org and the A Day in Space on July 16th, I checked it out over here. It looks very interesting. As far as Henk Rogers and having to deal with people in space, I've got a problem with people here on Earth. I have a coworker who likes to chew on ice. I keep looking this stuff up because he's driving me frickin' crazy. And apparently people who cannot stay awake like to chew on ice. And he's one of those guys. And it drives me insane. Occasionally when he's walked out of the room, down the hall or something like that, I've taken his glass and our main door to the building is nearby. I take his cup of ice and I toss the ice out into the bushes. That should tell you something about ice people. It drives me crazy. Then I put it back. He said, what happened to my ice? I have no idea. So that might prove that I'd be a very bad astronaut, or I would cause the first death in space by murder. This is KE5ICX. I'm your net control for tonight. What is this? Oh, Skynet. As net control, I get to pick a topic of my choice. Sometimes that's easy, sometimes not so easy. Tonight I decided to go ahead and pick up Space Force, or as it's popularly called, Space Force. Now, as you might guess, or you may know, there's two Space Forces. There's a real one and a fake one. And I found the coolest article on comparing the two, and I would have liked, if I had known earlier, I probably would have picked that one. But instead, I'm going to talk to you about the real Space Force and what it is and what they do, I think. Still, after going through the articles, I'm not entirely sure, and you won't be either. But at any rate, let me tell you what I found out from their website, USSF.mil. Doesn't get more official than that. The United States Space Force, or USSF, is a new branch of the Armed Forces. It was established on December 20th, 2019, with an enactment of fiscal year 2020 National Defense Authorization Act, which will be stood up over the next 18 months. The USSF was established within the Department of the Air Force, meaning the Secretary of the Air Force has overall responsibility for USSF under the guidance and direction of the Secretary of Defense. Additionally, a four-star general known as the Chief of Space Operations serves as the senior military member of the USSF. The CSO is a full member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And in case you don't know, and they don't mention it here, which is a very strange thing, but the Chief of Space Operations is General John J.W. Raymond. The USSF is a military service that organizes, trains, and equips space forces in order to protect the U.S. and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to the joint force. USSF responsibilities include developing military space professionals, acquiring military space systems, maturing the military doctrine for space power, and organizing space forces to present to our combatant commands. Forces, the U.S. Space Force serves as the principal uniformed advisor to the Secretary of the Air Force on Space Force activities. The CSO provides over the Office of Chief Space Operations, transmits and recommendations to the Secretary of the Air Force, and acts as the Secretary's agent in carrying them out. The headquarters and office of the CSO are located in the Pentagon, just like the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. This staff will focus on establishing fully functioning headquarters featuring to execute the full scope of its organized, train, and equip responsibilities, and in conjunction with the U.S. Air Force developing a detailed plan to transfer forces into the U.S. Space Force. As a new military service, the U.S. Space Force will leverage the Department of Air Force for more than 75% of its enabling functions to significantly reduce cost and avoid duplication. The Department of the Air Force will provide support functions that includes logistics, base operating support, central personnel management, business systems, IT support, audit agencies, etc. Of course, we don't know what the etc. is. It's top secret. The Air Force Space Command, or AFSPC, was redesignated as the USSF as an initial step in establishing the USSF. Military members that were assigned to the AFSPC now assigned to the USSF, but remain airmen within the U.S. Air Force. Appropriate Air Force space-related personnel were transferred into the Space Force and become Space Force service personnel in a deliberate manner over the next 18 months. Over time, the Department of Defense vision is to consolidate space missions from across the armed forces into the USSF and appropriate and consistent with law. Now they have a flag. Everybody's got a flag. The U.S. Space Force is proud to present the official flag. This is their website, by the way, to the President of the United States, to our space professionals across the globe, and to the American public in establishing another piece of our culture. The official flag of the Space Force is derived from key and central elements of the seal of the United States Space Force presented on a black field fringed in platinum with the words United States Space Force and the Roman numerals MMXIX 2019. And there is a shot of it over the internet, and if you're a Star Trek fan, you're looking at it and saying, geez, that looks kind of familiar. Yeah, you know, it looks like the Starfleet insignia. We all know that. So get over it. It's not. It's United States Space Force. They beat them out by 200 years. The new independent U.S. Space Force will maintain and enhance the competitive edge of all DoD in space while adapting to new strategic challenges. Space lift operations, the East and West Coast launch bases, provide services, facilities, and launch safety control for the conduct of DoD, NASA, and commercial space launches. Through the command and control of all DoD satellites, satellite operators provided force multiplying effects. That means continuous group coverage, low vulnerability, and autonomous operations. Satellites provided essential in-theater secure communications, weather and navigational ground for data for ground, air, and fleet operations, and threat warning. Let's see, it also provides ground-based and space-based systems monitor ballistic missile launches from around the world to guard against a surprise missile attack on North America. A global network of space surveillance sensors provide vital information on the location of satellites and space debris for the nation and the world, maintaining space superiority in an emerging capability required to protect U.S. space assets from hostile attacks. Hey, it's just like the fictional one on TV. All right, let me skip down a little bit. There's a little bit of a history thing here. It probably takes too long, but here it is. The mission, the United States Space Force mission, is to organize, train, and equip space forces in order to protect U.S. and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to the joint force. Its responsibilities include developing military space professionals, acquiring military space systems, maturing the military doctrine for space power, and organizing space forces to present to the combatant commands. The Space Force is specifically responsible for organizing, training, and equipping forces in the following mission sets. Here you go. Space superiority, space domain awareness, that's military, civil, and commercial. Offensive and defensive space control, command and control of space forces and satellite operations, space support to operations such as satellite communications, space service support, space lift and space range operations for military and commercial operators, space support to nuclear command, control, communications, and nuclear detonation, detection, and missile warning, and space support to missile defense operations. I mentioned this earlier, but all members of the former Air Force Space Command are currently assigned to the Space Force. Members of the Army and Navy will also be detailed to the Space Force. There's approximately 16,000 individuals assigned to the Space Force. Air Force airmen will begin transferring to the Space Force beginning in fiscal year 2020, while Army soldiers and Navy sailors will begin transferring in fiscal year 2022. The 2021 budget allocates 10,000 civilian and military billets to the USSF. The Space Force is creating career tracks for the Space Force core organic specialties, including space-specific operations, intelligence, engineering, acquisitions, science, and cyber communications. Support specialties such as legal, medical, civil engineering, logistics, financial management, security forces, and public affairs will be detailed by the Air Force to support the Space Force. So there you have it, a little bit about Space Force. My slideshow kind of messed up, but you can look them up. Just think about the Air Force without the air, and you have Space Force. Think about it. It's really great. And it will always be ahead of the Coast Guard, so just remember that as well. All right, this is KE5ICX. I'm Net Control for tonight's Skynet. I'll tell you what, before we move on to space exploration and space history, I'll see if there are any additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich, Rockwall.
Kilo Mike 5 Lima, Patrick, Dallas.
Very good. Picked up two more. I got AG5PM, that's Rich over in Rockwall, and KM5L, Patrick in Dallas. So next up is space exploration and space history. Miss Kelly, K5KTX. That's your section. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX. Good evening to everybody on the net. So, very soon, within about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the next Mars rover to launch, and NASA's Perseverance Mars rover just this last week has been attached to the top of the rocket that will send it toward the red planet this summer. Encased in the nose cone that will protect it during launch, the rover and the rest of the Mars 2020 spacecraft, the aeroshell, the cruise stage, and descent stage were affixed to a United Launch Alliance Atlas V booster on Tuesday, July the 7th at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Central Florida. The process began when a 60-ton hoist on the roof of the Vertical Integration Facility at Space Launch Complex 41 lifted the nose cone, otherwise known as the payload fairing, 129 feet to the top of the waiting rocket. There, engineers made the physical and electrical connections that will remain between the booster and spacecraft until 50 to 60 minutes after launch, when the two are pyrotechnically separated and Perseverance is on its way. launching of a spacecraft and booster complete, the final testing of the two, separately and as one unit, will be underway. Then 2 days before the July 30th launch, the Atlas V will leave the vertical integration facility. Traveling by rail, it will cover the 1,800 feet to the launch pad in about 40 minutes. From there, Perseverance has about 7 months and 290 million miles to go before arriving at Mars. NASA and United Launch Alliance recently updated the mission's launch period, the range of days the rocket can launch in order to reach Mars. It now spans from July 30th to August 15th. The launch period opening changed from July 17th to 30th due to launch vehicle processing delays in preparation for spacecraft mate operations. 4 days were added to the previously designated August 11th end of the launch period. NASA and United Launch Alliance flight teams were able to provide those extra days after final weights of both the spacecraft and launch vehicle became available, allowing them to more accurately calculate the propellant available to get Perseverance on its way. No matter what day Perseverance lifts off during its launch period, it will land in Mars Zero crater on February the 18th, 2021. Targeting landing for one specific date and time helps mission planners better understand lighting and temperature at the landing site, as well as the location of Mars orbiting satellites tasked with recording and relaying spacecraft data during its descent and landing. So covered all of the primary instruments on the Perseverance rover except for one called SuperCam. The SuperCam on the Perseverance rover examines rocks and soils with a camera, laser, and spectrometers to seek organic compounds that could be related to past life on Mars. It can identify the chemical and mineral makeup of targets as small as a point from a distance of more than 20 feet. It is mounted on the head of the rover's long mast. And here's a bit of trivia. The rover has 23 cameras on board, more than any other interplanetary mission. There will be 9 engineering cameras, 7 science cameras, and 7 cameras and a microphone for entry, descent, and landing operations. So in case you haven't made your plans yet, there's still time to get to Florida if you want to see the launch. All right, in space history this week, starting with July the 7th, way back in 1914, Robert H. Goddard was granted his very first patent for a rocket apparatus. It describes his concept for the multi-stage rocket. In the patent application, Goddard did not mention human spaceflight. The patent reads, "This invention relates to a rocket apparatus and particularly to a form of such apparatus adapted to transport photographic or other recording instruments to extreme heights." However, the concept of multi-stage rockets was crucial to launch vehicle development and has been the way that humans have reached space since 1961. During his lifetime, Goddard had 48 patents issued to him. He was awarded 35 others for which he had applied posthumously. His wife, Esther, applied for 131 additional patents in his name based on notes, sketches, and photographs, bringing the total number of Goddard patents up to 214. Some of the patents include the gimbaled nozzle, gyroscopic control, the liquid-fueled rocket engine, parachute recovery, and the cryogenic bearing. All of these inventions were used by space agencies in some capacity. And although Dr. Goddard did not live to see human spaceflight, he died in 1945, his inventions and experiments paved the way for space exploration. Also on July the 7th, back in 2003, Mars rover, Explorer rover B, or Opportunity, launched on a Delta II rocket from Cape Canaveral, the second of NASA's Mars exploration rovers. It is an exact copy of MER-A, or Spirit, which was launched on June 10, 2003, and carried the same set of instruments. The main difference, while Spirit ceased communication in March 2010, Opportunity also has no longer working as well. But it did work for a long time beyond its 90 days of planned service. Opportunity landed on Mars on January 25th, 2004, and was conducting science in Mars's Endeavour crater. The rover acted like a geologist, studying rocks and soil on Mars to determine how past water activity has influenced the red planet's environment over time. And on July the 8th, back in 2011, Space Shuttle Atlantis left Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center for her last flight in space. This was the final mission of the shuttle program. The STS-135 crew, Chris Ferguson, Doug Hurley, who is also on the space station right now as part of the Demo 2 crew, and Rex Walham and Sandy Magnus were on a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station. STS-135 was the 33rd flight of Atlantis, the 37th shuttle mission to the International Space Station, and the 135th mission of NASA's Space Shuttle program. NASA commentator Rob Navia said, "The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history." And by the way, if you get to go to Florida to see the launch of the next Mars rover, be sure to stop by the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center and don't miss the Atlantis exhibit. It's amazing. On July the 10th, back in 1962, Telstar set the ball rolling as the first active communications satellite. Televised events from overseas. Before Telstar 1, such a thing was unheard of. Produced for AT&T, the satellite left Earth's atmosphere atop a Thor Delta 316 rocket to become the first commercial payload in space. Demonstrated that it was feasible to transmit information using satellites, including relaying the world's first transatlantic television signal from Maine to France. Telstar showed images and clips of American and French interests, including President Kennedy, sports, and other areas of entertainment. The satellite operated for 4 months, during which it facilitated over 400 telephone, telegraph, facsimile, and television transmissions before becoming inactive due to radiation. Later communication satellites would be placed in geosynchronous orbit, allowing them to relay transmissions continuously. And finally, on today's date, July the 11th, back in 1979, America's first space station, Skylab, returned to Earth. Skylab, launched on May 14, 1973 from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, marked a new phase for America's human spaceflight program. The goal now became to stay in space for longer periods of time and conduct complex scientific experiments in the unique space environment. Dr. Werner von Braun and his team at NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center, Alabama, converted the third stage of a Saturn V rocket into a habitable orbital laboratory. It was put into space on the last Saturn V to launch. Over the course of its human occupation from May 25, 1973 to February the 8th, 1974, 3 crews, each with 3 crew members, visited Skylab. The third Skylab crew lived in space for 84 days, which at the time was a new record for the longest human stay in space. The laboratory was boosted to a higher orbit as the last crew left with the hope that it would still be there when the space shuttle began to fly a few years later. But shuttle development took longer than hoped, and a more active solar period nudged Skylab closer to the atmosphere earlier than expected. Efforts in the early summer of 1979 to safely deorbit Skylab were mostly successful. The planned re-entry over the Indian Ocean happened as expected, but some of the remnants of Skylab went further east than expected and came down over parts of Australia. And that's all I've got this evening. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Miss Kelly, and this is KE5ICX. Yeah, I remember when it went down. In fact, I had a Skylab return to Earth party. Everyone brought their own hard hats. And it's true, 2 weeks before the thing eventually went down. By the way, they also NASA got a ticket from Australia. I don't know where exactly, probably one of the cities, where pieces rain down from above, remote areas, but for littering. They got a ticket for littering. This is still KE5ICX. So let's do this. Let us move on to Chaz. Dare we? KF5JJ. Chaz, what do you have for us for What's Up? And Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. And maybe they wanted a ticket to ride. Anyway, good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College at Brookhaven. We've changed our name. All of the 7 colleges are now called Dallas College. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up. And I'll also be doing Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, but let's first get to What's Up. The moon was full on July 4th, just a week ago. So the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. The moon will be third quarter just tomorrow on July the 12th. The moon will be new on July the 20th, and the moon will be at third quarter. I'm sorry, that's not third quarter. It'll be at first quarter on July the 27th. I have my notes all written up wrong. July the 14th, Jupiter will be at opposition. The giant planet will be at its closest point to the Earth, and its face will be fully illuminated. Wow, I didn't know it had a face. It will be brighter than any other time during the year and will be visible all night long, because when it's at opposition, it's on the opposite sun from the sky. So when the sun sets, it rises, and when it sets, the sun is rising. The best time to view and photograph Jupiter and its moons. A medium-sized telescope should show you some of the details of Jupiter's cloud band. It has zones and belts. Zones and belts. The lighter parts are called the zones, and the darker areas are called the belts. And they've started using the term bands now. A good pair of binoculars is all you need to see 4 largest moons of Jupiter: Callisto, Ganymede, Europa, and Io. And they appear in just a short period of time. You can see them move. Just a few days later, on July the 20th, Saturn is at opposition. And again, it'll be at the closest approach to the Earth, and it'll be fully illuminated. And again, it's going to be in the opposite part of the sky from the sun. And it'll be the brightest that it'll be all year long. It's a great time to photograph Saturn and its moons. The big moon, Titan, is usually pretty easy to see. If you have a larger size telescope, you can see maybe up to a dozen of its moons. And on July the 22nd, Mercury will be at its greatest western elongation. The planet Mercury reaches greatest western elongation. It's about 20.1 degrees from the sun this time. It'll be the best time to view it on that date because it'll be at its highest point above the horizon in the morning sky. Look for the planet in the low eastern sky just before sunrise. Those are the regular things. I want to talk about something that's even more irregular. After a long dry spell of bright comets, we finally got a naked eye comet that is visible in the low northeastern morning sky. Comet Nero-Wise can be seen without optical aid very low in the northeastern sky around 5 o'clock a.m. until maybe 5:30. After 5:30, twilight will be so strong you can still see it with binoculars, but you might not be able to see it naked eye. And with binoculars, it'll probably fade away by 6 o'clock. In a few days, the comet shifts from the north to the northwestern evening sky. So the sun sets around 8:35 p.m., so start looking for the comet Nero-Wise about, 8:50 p.m. with binoculars. SpaceWeather.com has some star maps for the position of the comet that might be useful for you. All right, early this morning, the moon and Mars were in conjunction in the southeastern sky. It's a lot cooler to do the stargazing after midnight than before. And for some reason, I woke up, looked out, and there was the moon, and there was Mars right there in the sky. A few hours from now, at about 5 a.m. on July the 12th, you can observe Venus in conjunction with the star Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the brightest star in Taurus, the bull. Aldebaran is one of the red eyes of the bull. And it's also part of the Hyades star cluster. This will make a great photographic opportunity for those of you that are astrophotographers. And a few mornings later on, the moon joins Venus and Aldebaran in the Hyades star cluster. Once again, that'll be a good photographic opportunity. And it's a great time to go out and do observing because it's early in the morning and it'll be cool. At the end of July, there are 3 meteor showers that peak on the same exact night. The Alpha Capricornids may only produce half a dozen meteors per hour. The Southern Delta Aquarids could produce 1 to 2 dozen meteors per hour. And finally, the June Gamma Draconids could produce up to 100 meteors per hour. For details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization at imo.net. And that's the end of What's Up segment. And my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Now, let's begin Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of a silent key, Carolyn KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet every week, almost from its beginning, from 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 constellations out of the 88 that are easily visible from Texas throughout the year, Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued the tradition of the constellation per week. Miss Carolyn Constellation of the Week this week is, I believe it's Scorpius, and I have it written down wrong in the script, but it's Scorpius, which is a scorpion. Scorpius is the constellation of the scorpion, and it's one of the few constellations that look more or less like the creature that it represents. The best-known mythology about Scorpius is the scorpion is an immortal enemy, a very mortal enemy of Orion, the mighty hunter. Orion boasted that there was not an animal on the earth that he could not conquer. To punish him in his vanity, the goddess Juno sent the scorpion to spring out of the earth and sting Orion, killing him. At the request of the goddess Diana, Orion was placed in the sky among the stars. Scorpius was also placed in the sky, but at the point exactly opposite Orion was placed. So the scorpion rises and Orion sets, and vice versa. So the two will never be seen in the sky at the same time. Antares, the brightest star in the Scorpion, Alpha Scorpii, literally means the rival of Aries, with Aries being the Greek name for Mars, so it's often translated the rival of Mars instead. Its name comes from the fact that it looks so much like Mars because of its red color, and in fact it shines about the same brightness as Mars much of the time. During the times when Mars is in the constellation of Scorpius or Ophiuchus and is near Antares, the two make quite an interesting pair to look at. Antares is a first magnitude M-type star, or a red star. It's a supergiant star, so it is huge. If Antares were placed at the center of our solar system, the entire orbit of Mars would be inside the star, not to mention the orbits of Mercury, Venus, and Earth. What would that make us? Toast. Of course, in Texas, that would be Texas toast. My friend Dennis Harwell says, with this in mind, if Antares and Mars were truly rivals, my money would be on Antares. Antares is also a double star, as a faint companion that is slightly over 2 arcseconds away. That's really kind of close, and shining somewhere between 5th and 6th magnitude, It requires good optics and a good seeing in the sky to be able to split this pair. The color of the companion star is often reported as green, but there's no real green stars. So its actual color is blue in color. The other star I want to talk about in Scorpius is Akrab, or Beta Scorpii, the second brightest star in the constellation. It simply means scorpion in Arabic. Beta Scorpii is also a double star, much easier to split than Antares, earning it a place in the double star list in the Astronomical League Urban Club. Both stars in this double are type B and bluish white, so not much color contrast between them. I want to talk about 4 deep sky objects in the constellation. M4 is a globular cluster, and this single object, M4, is listed in 5 different of the Astronomical League observing clubs. So looking at this object alone, you can get credit for 4 different observings. M4 is fairly easy to find since it's the same low power field of view as Antares and the nearby Sigma Scorpii. M4 is more sparsely populated than many other globular clusters. Some astrophotographs show a denser vertical bar in the stars across the center of the cluster. Visual observers have seen this as well. In his book, The Messier Objects by Stephen James O'Meara, likens this vertical bar to the slitted pupil of a cat's eye. M80 is another globular star cluster. An easy way to find M80 is simply to draw lines from Antares to Beta Scorpii. I talked about both those stars just earlier. And M80 is very near the center point of this line. M80 is smaller than M4, but it's more densely populated globular cluster. Due to its small size, in a 3-inch scope at low power, it almost looks like a star, with only a bit of faint wispiness marking the outer regions. In a larger 8 to 10-inch scope, the outer regions of M80 are much better resolved, but the core still looks pretty solid to many observers. The last 2 deep sky objects in the Scorpion are very fond in my heart, because they were the first 2 M objects that I ever found with my own 2-inch Tasco telescope. So, M6 is an open cluster. Both M6 and 7 are an open cluster, but M6 has been long called the butterfly cluster because many observers see the shape of a butterfly formed by the stars. The cluster has about 100 members spread over an area of about 26 arc minutes in diameter, just slightly smaller than the moon's diameter. You can easily see it in binoculars. M7 is a naked eye Messier object. M7 can sometimes be referred to as the Ptolemy cluster because the first written record of this star cluster was made by Claudius Ptolemy back in the 2nd century. M7 is easy to find since it's visible to the naked eye. Just look for the fuzzy area near the stinger of the Scorpion. And once again, my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. There's several more Astronomical League observing program objects, about 2 dozen more in the constellation of Scorpius. I'll just give you a sampling of a few of those objects. And the Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So if you observe 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate in about a year. And that is Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week, Scorpius. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research on the deep sky objects that I've used tonight. I'll take a look at the constellation Hercules next week. Well, as long as we're all strong enough. Next week, the meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, once again, is going to be on July the 24th. That's a Friday, the 4th Friday of each month. It'll be a virtual club meeting using Zoom. If you're not a member and you want to participate, you need to contact one of the club officers, and they're listed in the website, texasastro.org, and they may give you permission. Dr. Amanda Bayless, once again from the Southwest Research Institute, will be the featured speaker. Her topics probably be on spacecraft and maybe on a Martian spacecraft, maybe one that we just heard about earlier this evening. And once again, this will be a virtual one. I hope the face-to-face meetings of TASS and the observing stations on Saturday nights will happen sometime soon. I want to welcome the students from Dallas College at Brookhaven that are listening and watching Skynet tonight. Students, just a reminder, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. Now, do any of you out there in Radioland have any questions or need a fill on any information, or do you just have a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
KE5ICX.
Well, in 2 more sentences, I was going to give it back to you anyway. Tom, go ahead. What's your question?
All right, with 3 meteor showers coming up this month, they're at the same night. Is that possible? And if it is, will I get drenched? But where should I look in the sky, or should I just like lay on the ground and look straight up? From KE5ICX.
It's a good question. I usually use the method of using a lawn chair, well, one that flattens out, and just look up. If it looks like they're coming from a particular part of the sky, I might reorient my observing. Now, by the way, how do you figure out which meteor shower that the meteor is related to? What you do is you trace the trail back and see if it's coming from one of those 3 constellations. The meteor showers seem to originate from a constellation. That's the particles that the Earth's going into. It's similar to, well, around here we don't get much snow, but if you're in a snowstorm in a car driving, and you look above where you're driving a little bit, it looks like all the snowflakes seem to come from a single point. It's also known as the Star Trek effect, with the Starship Enterprise going through the galaxy, and you can see the stars coming from a single point in front. So, yeah, my answer would be up.
All right, thank you, Chaz. I think you're done. Does anyone else have any questions for Chaz? You know him, KF5JJ.
Oh, yeah. The point where they all seem to come from is called the radiant point. Thank you, John. That's up in Oklahoma. So as the moon wanes over the next week, so do these words: stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. And until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is Chaz, KF5JJ, back to net control. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, thank you, Chaz. And thanks for the really excellent presentation. That was a long one tonight, but it was an excellent one, and most appreciated. This is KE5ICX, net control for tonight's Skynet. Tell you what, before we move on to the next section, I'll take additional check-ins. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. Okay, hearing none, I've got, as far as I can tell, 21, 22 people on the various streams watching tonight. Not too bad for us. It's nice to see, probably from Brookhaven, the vast majority, but welcome everybody who's watching the net and listening in. Okay, the next section of the net is space launches for this week. Some of you may be aware that there was supposed to be a launch of the, what is it? The constellation of satellites that did not go up today. They're looking at possibly I don't know when it is again, maybe tomorrow or another date, so it did not go up. What I do have for you is July 14th. That would be the Emirates Mars mission, the H-2A rocket from the Tanegashima Space Center in Japan. A Japanese H-2A rocket will launch the Emirates Mars mission for the United Arab Emirates. Yes, they have a mission for Mars, and this is the month to launch them, by the way, since we are in opposition. And I should say at our closest approach. The Emirates Mars mission is also called HOPE, is the Mars orbiter that is developed by the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center in Dubai in partnership with the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado. As again I mentioned, this is scheduled for July 14th at 4:51 Eastern Daylight Time. Also on July 14th will be the Falcon 9 Anasis 2. This will launch at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight from Launch Complex SLC-40 from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch Anasis 2, or KMILSATCOM-1 communication satellite for the South Korean military. The spacecraft was built by Airbus Defense and Space. July 15th, the Minotaur 4 N-Roll 129 will launch at 1300 GMT or 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight from Pad 0B from Wallops Island, Virginia. U.S. Air Force and Northrop Grumman Minotaur 4 rocket will launch a classified space satellite cargo for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. On July 23rd, a Long March Find Tianwen-1 will launch from Wencheng, China. The Chinese Long March 5 rocket will launch the Tianwen-1 mission to attempt Chinese first landing on Mars. The robotic mission includes an orbiter and a mobile rover to explore the surface of Mars. On July 23rd, Soyuz Progress 76P will launch at 10:26 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time from Bakamor Cosmodrome, Kazakhstan. A Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch the 76th Progress cargo delivery ship to the International Space Station. On July 25th, a Falcon 9 SAILCOM-1B launch at 7:19 p.m. Eastern Daylight from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch the SAILCOM-1B satellite for CONAE, Argentina's space agency. SAILCOM-1B is the second of two SAILCOM-1 series Earth observation satellites designed to provide radar imagery to help emergency responders and monitor the environment, including a collection of soil moisture measurements. On July 28th, an Ariane 5 will launch the Galaxy 30 MEV-2 BSAT-4B. That's three different satellites between 5:29 and 6:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This will launch from ELA-3 from Kourou, French Guiana. Aerospace will use the Ariane 5 ECA rocket, that's their heavy lift by the way, designed BA-253 to launch the Galaxy 30 communications satellite, the second mission extension vehicle satellite servicing spacecraft in the BSAT-4B broadcasting payload. The Galaxy 30 is owned by Intelsat and will provide video and television broadcast services over the United States. Galaxy 30 also hosts navigation augmentation payload for the Federal Aviation Administration to support civilian air travel. MEV-2 is the second robotic servicing vehicle for the Space Logistics LLC and will dock with the Intelsat 1002 communication satellite in geostationary orbit to extend its commercial life. BSAT-4B will provide direct-to-home 4K and 8K Ultra HD broadcast services over Japan and neighboring regions for the Japanese operator BSAT. Galaxy 30 and MEV-2 were built by Northrop Grumman, and BSAT-4B was manufactured by Maxar. on July 29th, the Proton Express 80 and Express 103 mission. This will launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome, Kazakhstan. A Russian government Proton rocket and Block DM upper stage will launch the Express 80 and Express 103 communication satellites for the Russian Satellite Communication Company. Express 80 and Express 103 will provide fixed and mobile communications, digital television, and radio broadcasting, high-speed internet access, and data transmission services across Russia. The satellites are built at the ISS Reshetny in Russia, with communications payloads supplied by Thales Alenia Space from Europe. And that was delayed from Mars. And then finally, another heavy lift rocket, Atlas V Mars 2020, will launch sometime between 7:50 and 9:50 a.m. The launch site will be SLC-41, Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, Florida. The United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket will launch NASA's Mars 2020 rover to the Red Planet. After landing in February of 2021, the Mars 2020 rover, named Perseverance, will study Martian geology, search for organic compounds, demonstrate the ability to generate oxygen from atmospheric carbon dioxide, and collect rock samples for return to Earth by a future mission. The rocket will fly in the 541 vehicle configuration with a 5-meter fairing, 4 solid rocket boosters, and a single-engine Centaur upper stage. And that's it on the actual dated July launches. There's actually more that are to be determined, but as you can see, July is a very busy month, and since we started doing this segment, it is the busiest month I think I've ever seen for launches, and many of them significant heavy launches for Mars missions and for communication satellites, so it's pretty spectacular. All right, this is KE5ICX, I'm Net Control. I'll go ahead and move on to Miss Brenda and recent astronomical discoveries. Miss Brenda, what do you have for us from KE5ICX?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. Got an article entitled The Collective Power of the Solar System's Dark Icy Bodies. The outermost reaches of our solar system are a strange place filled with dark and icy bodies with nicknames like Sedna, Biden, and the Goblin, each of which span several hundred miles across. 2 new studies by researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder may help solve one of the biggest mysteries about these faraway worlds, why so many of them don't circle the sun the way they should. The orbits of these planetary oddities, which scientists call detached objects, tilt and buckle out of the plane of the solar system, along with other unusual behaviors. This region of space, which is so much closer to us than stars in our galaxy, and other things that we can observe just fine, is just so unknown to us, said Anne-Marie Madigan, an assistant professor in the Department of Astrophysical and Planetary Sciences at CU Boulder. Some researchers have suggested that something big could be to blame, like an undiscovered planet dubbed Planet 9 that scatters objects in its wake. But Madigan and graduate student Alexander Zderek prefer to think smaller. Drawing on exhaustive computer simulations, the duo makes its case that these detached objects may have disrupted their own orbits through tiny gravitational nudges that added up over millions of years. The findings, Madigan said, provide a tantalizing hint to what may be going on in this mysterious region of space. We're the first team to be able to reproduce everything, all the weird orbital anomalies that scientists have seen over the years, said Madigan, also a fellow at JILA. It's crazy to think that there's still so much we need to do. The team published its results July 2nd in the Astronomical Journal and last month in the Astronomical Journal Letters. The problem with studying the outer solar system, Madigan added, is that it's just so dark. Ordinarily, the only way to observe these objects is to have the sun's rays smack off their surface and come back to our telescopes on Earth, she said. Because it's difficult to learn anything about it, there was this assumption that it was empty. She's one of a growing number of scientists who argue that this region of space is far from empty, but that doesn't make it any easier to understand. Just look at the detached objects. While most bodies in the solar system tend to circle the sun in a flat disk, the orbits of these icy worlds can tilt like a seesaw. Many also tend to cluster in just one slice of the night sky, a bit similar to a compass that only points north. Madigan and Zderek wanted to find out why. To do that, they turned to supercomputers to recreate or model the dynamics of the outer solar system in greater detail than ever before. We modeled something that may have once existed in the outer solar system and also added in the gravitational influence of giant planets like Jupiter, said Zderek, also of APS. In the process, they discovered something unusual. The icy objects in their simulations started off orbiting the sun like normal, but then over time they began to pull and push on each other. As a result, their orbits grew wonkier until they eventually resembled the real thing. What was most remarkable was that they did it all alone. The astronauts and asteroids and minor planets didn't need a big planet to throw them for a loop. Individually, all the gravitational interactions between these small bodies are weak, Madigan said, but if you have enough of them, that becomes important. Madigan and Zderek had seen hints of smaller patterns in earlier research, but their latest results provide the most exhaustive evidence yet. The findings also come with a big caveat. In order to make Madigan and Zderek's theory of collective gravity work, the outer solar system once needed to contain a huge amount of stuff. You need objects that added up to something on the order of 20 Earth masses, Madigan said. That's theoretically possible, but it's definitely going to be bumping up against people's beliefs. One way or the other, scientists should find out soon. A new telescope called the Vera C. Rubin Observatory is scheduled to come online in Chile in 2022 and will begin to shine a new light on this unknown stretch of space. A lot of recent fascination with the outer solar system is related to technological advances, Zderek said. You really need the newest generation of telescopes to observe these bodies. That's all I got. Back to net. This is from ScienceDaily.com. WB50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Brenda. And this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. Take one more round of check-ins. If you'd like to join us before we move to the next segment, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
November 5, Lima, X-Ray, India, Joel in Lake Highlands.
All right, we picked up one more. I got Joel, N5LXI. Welcome back, Joel. He's over in Lake Highlands. I have you checked in. Look over on Echolink. I think everybody, all ashore that's going ashore is there. Let me see. Next up is what is it called? Oh yeah, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. There's a number of things that are now available that really wasn't showing up much. Of course, I wasn't there last week, but International Space Station is showing some really nice passes coming up. We have one on July 15th. This one will be, actually most of these passes are 2 or sometimes 3 passes, usually separated by about 90 minutes, but the one I want to mention is July 15th. The second pass is minus 3.2 magnitude at 21:45 in the evening, our local time. The southwest at 21:48 reaches its highest point at 61 degrees and falls to the northwest at 21:52. The next one is July 17th. That one, it has two passes as well. The second pass is a minus 3.9 magnitude. It will be at 5:06 a.m. out of the northwest. It will reach its highest point at 62 degrees at 5:10, and it will fall at 5:13. The next pass is July 17th. This is the second pass as well. Minus 3.9 magnitude at 5:06. Oh, I did that one. Hold on. 17. Looking again here. Oh, well. Yeah, I covered that one. All right, never mind. Somehow or another, I must have messed up. But next pass, satellite pass of interest would be the X-37B, the secret space plane. There's a July 19th pass, which is quite good. Hold on while I get there, since I messed up. This one is July 19th at 5:34 a.m. out of 19 degrees out of the southwest. It will reach its highest point at 5:36 at 71 degrees, and it will fall at 5:39. I think it falls into shadow. This one, as always, does not give a magnitude because there's extreme variability in this particular satellite because of the different markings on the flat reentry part and on the upper reflective part of the space plane. So we'll end it there on that. What time is it? 10:27. So what I will do is, does anyone have any questions for anybody this evening? We'll just do a Q&A here real quick. If anybody has a question, we will direct it to the person with the appropriate answer. It's probably Jazz, but we'll see. Does anybody have any questions this evening? Please come now with your call sign. Do we have any final check-ins? Please come now.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo, Kane and Richardson.
All right, very good. We captured another K5ANA Kane over in Richardson. That makes a total of 28 hams participating on the air tonight. Thank you to all who checked in. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you'd like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:29 local time. Until next Saturday night, we'll next time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 7-3 everybody, enjoy discovering the universe. Back here in 5 minutes.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net. He's in outer space ducks. We'll see you then 5 minutes from now. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
need to use a repeater before we begin the Afterglow movie net.
You're not getting out of it that easy. Go ahead. Your turn. Get to work. WT9V.
Okay. Hold on. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Oscar Zulu Lima. And the Afterglow movie net is every Saturday night at about 10:30 after Skynet. And what we do is we watch some unredeemable movie, and then we all pretend to have something interesting to say about it. Actually, it's a lot of fun. Tonight's movie is Howard the Duck. And I'm going to read the synopsis that Tom wrote, which actually doesn't have anything to do with the movie, but it's always funny. The parakeet climbed around the house unimpeded. In the background, the sound of a TS-2000 transceiver. One could hear the 13 Colonies Special Event Contest droning QSL signal reports every 10 seconds. But no one was listening in the house. The bird had no interest. In fact, it had managed to customize the microphone on said TS-2000 as a bit of an entertaining animal axiom. Retribution for being ignored by its overseer, hours at a time. The bird jumped from his perch and onto the coffee table below. Off to the side were two remotes. The bird had learned to manipulate them both, one to the television and one to the DVR device. It was easy to see, even to this bird, both devices were ready to provide entertainment only a small-brained animal might find intriguing. The screen came to life and the name George Lucas shimmered into focus. It was a comedy devoid of spaceships, empires, John Williams music, and instead presented only a duck, a talking one at that. But not just any duck. A bird from our world was ready to observe the bird from another world, but what would it learn? Wikipedia has a little more relevant synopsis of it. It is a 1986 American science fiction comedy. That's what they say. Film directed by Willard Huyck and starring Leah Thompson, Jeffrey Jones, and Tim Robbins. Based on the Marvel comic book of the same name, the film was produced by Gloria Katz and written by Huyck and Huyck, I don't know how you say his name, and Katz, with George Lucas as executive producer. The screenplay was originally intended to be an animated film, but the film adaptation became live action because of a contractual obligation. Although several TV adaptations of Marvel characters had aired during the preceding 21 years, this was the first theatrically released feature film coming after the serial Captain America. I'm not going to bore you with much more of this, except to say it is considered to be one of the worst films of all time, but has since gotten a cult following. It made $15 million domestically compared to its U.S. $37 million budget, so it was a bomb. It was nominated for 7 Razzie Awards, and but that's okay. We're going to find out if anybody liked it. So I'm going to take check-ins. Give us your call sign, your name, your location, and whether or not you saw the movie. So we'll go ahead and take general check-ins now.
November, Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, and Aaron in Dallas. Oh, we saw the movie all right.
Whiskey 5, Tango X-Ray, Jake, Rowlett, and yes,
I've seen the movie and rewatched it this week.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Echo, Kane and Richardson, and yes, I saw the movie.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Tango Sierra Kilo, Berlin, Dallas. I did see the movie.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, near Weatherford. I'll be using Echo Link. And it's out of film.
This is Kilo 5, Echo Victor Sierra, Eric Richardson. I've seen the movie 1.5 times now.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray, Tom, Louisville. Yes, I saw the movie.
Whiskey Tango 9 Victor, Michael in Plano. Yes, I saw the most excellent comedy, drama, love story. Not really sure what it was, but I saw it. WT9V.
Okay, we got NT5TM, Tony and Aaron. W5TXX, Jake. K5ANE, Kane. KF5TSK, Burl. K25BZWJ. K5EVS, Eric. KE5ICX, Tom. And WT9V, Michael. Everybody saw it. Do we have anybody on Echolink? Okay, do we have any other check-ins? Please come now.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Did you get me, Brenda?
No, I did not hear you, Bill. November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I assume you saw the movie.
I saw it years ago. I ran out of time to see it today, but I have seen it in the past. It's IBB.
Alrighty, well, let's get started. The format is pretty simple. We'll go down the list and ask people what they thought about the plot, and then we'll circle back and talk about characterization, and then special effects, or whatever else you want to talk about. So let's go ahead and start with Tony and Aaron. NT5TM, go ahead.
Good evening, Brenda. Thank you for being net control tonight. This is a really heartwarming movie for Aaron and I, because years and years ago, I hated this movie. I agreed with all the people who thought it was one of the worst movies ever made, because I saw the movie's publicity and I thought it's a superhero movie about a talking duck in a little suit. But then years later, I watched it again and I thought, ha, it's just funny. So the plot has actually improved a lot over the years for me. It was part of this unique era, like with Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, when 80s humor was very literal. This was also reprised in the movie Bulworth, when characters asked the politician, "Why haven't you filled any of your promises to our neighborhood?" And he said, "Well, frankly, it's because you didn't give enough money to my campaign." It was all literally true, but we were all supposed to laugh, and that was still what was happening in Star Trek IV and in Howard the Duck.
Erin gave me a lot of comments here. She was a kid when Howard the Duck came out, so she would watch the movie, and she didn't know anything about the source material, heck, neither did I, or the very high expectations put in the movie. Yes, it was not the first comic book movie. Yes, there have been other comic book movies, but this was not our current era when everything is a sequel and we all go watch the latest DC Comics movie or the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Comic book movies were new and strange, and there were very high expectations of them, kind of unreasonable ones. So Aaron was just watching this movie about a duck from outer space saving the world, and it was not a good movie. It had a ludicrous plot. There were tons of plot holes just about everywhere, but it was also not good, but not bad. It was a silly, fun movie. It was a feel-good movie, great for popcorn. You didn't have to think about it too much, and you shouldn't think about it too much. Some of the things were so ridiculous that they were impossible to not enjoy. I mean, it was like a giant 80s explosion on film. There were 80s punks, space rabies, quack foo, and the classic third act ticking clock, a chase scene in the air with an ultralight. I mean, they even used that gimmick in a Bond movie. And the bird flying the ultralight couldn't fly. It even ended with a happy rock concert instead of a big Shakespearean mass wedding. I mean, what could be more happy ending than that? And a lot of the dialogue was just right out of any G.I. Joe comic book. We have no right to tamper with the universe. I've been doing too much toot. There was some horrible opening narration. Narration is almost always bad. We know these different worlds exist because we'd all been watching 80s movies and we were all just shown them. And there were no voiceovers anywhere else in the movie, so the opening narration was totally unjustified. But hey, you know, it was fun, it was heartwarming, it was goofy. If you divorced it from its high expectations, Aaron and I had a great time. And with all the terrible movies that we have seen, can we really say that this was the worst movie that was ever made? NT5, TM.
Okay. Next up, W5TXXJ. Go ahead.
Well, I grew up in the 80s, and Howard the Duck was actually one of my favorite movies whenever I was a kid. I'd watch it all the time. We got it on VHS whenever I think I was 8 or 9, so a couple years after it came out on VHS, and I wore that tape out. The plot had more potholes in it than your average Dallas street, and it was quite hilarious. As an adult to rewatch the movie and see those plot holes and question them. There was a reason that this movie received 2 Worst Picture awards in 1986. So, but for nostalgia purposes, it was a great movie, and it made me go back and watch some of my favorite other 80s movies with Leah Thompson in it, like Space Camp and Back to the Future and Red Dawn. So it was fun to go back and watch. With that said, do I wish I would have had the 2 hours back that I spent watching the movie this week? No, it was good. So with that, back to Net Control, W5TXX.
All right, next up, K5ANE. Kane, go ahead.
So I was a 90s kid when this, growing up, and so I wasn't originally exposed to this movie, but I definitely recall seeing it on the shelves at the local VHS rental store, and, seeing it's this a George Lucas movie about some space duck thing, and, they make a big point to never actually show what Howard looks like in any of the trailers or the cover art or anything like that, or the posters. So, I just had this interesting mystery to me as a kid growing up, but my parents were never really interested in watching it, so I never ended up seeing it. I kind of forgot about it, and then it was brought up here, and I was like, oh yeah, Howard the Duck. I've been wanting to see that now for, almost 20 years. So, finally got around to actually watching it, which is part of the reason why I love this net. I do have to say, approaching it today is probably 1,000 times better than approaching it with the hype and the expectations and things like that in the 80s. And I also feel that a lot of the jokes are funnier now, and a lot of just the environment and everything else is funnier now, looking at this movie, than being in the 80s and seeing everything. It's just like, you know, you may not necessarily find a lot of these things funny, because that's how the world is at the moment. The whole movie is just entirely littered with 80s in-jokes and, you know, kind of product placement-y kind of things, and just, I mean, the whole, you know, rise of popularity of sushi restaurants and things like that. They just kind of throw that in there, that this, you know, diner is trying to upclass themselves more by becoming the sushi place, and it, you know, has absolutely nothing to do with the plot, and it's just this joke that's thrown in there that, you know, a lot of people, even in the 80s, may not have even really realized or cared that that's a thing. But then you look at it now and you realize, you know, the history of, you know, the rise of popularity of fancy sushi restaurants, and it's, you know, it's definitely interesting. And I was just constantly laughing at this movie. My wife Becca thought it was okay, but definitely didn't laugh nearly as much as me. So the plot. Let's get back to the plot. I have to say, the first half to 3/4 of the plot, to me, was incredibly predictable, and, you know, just the normal fish out of water kind of thing. Essentially, up until the demon gets involved was just when things kind of went off the rail in my mind on the plot as far as predictability, which was pretty good. I definitely didn't see that coming on my limited experience of the trailers and things like that and knowledge of the movie. So I always enjoy it when I'm watching a movie and things just start getting crazier and I didn't necessarily expect it. So hats off to the movie for making it interesting to me. In the end, I'd say it was a great movie, really, even though it was probably way over budget for what it should have been. But they did an excellent job, but I'll get into that in the later sections. This is K5 A&E, back to net control.
Okay, K5 TSK, Burl, go ahead.
This is KF5 TSK. I enjoyed the movie. I remember watching it when I was younger, and I probably didn't see the plot holes at that time. I saw them now. Probably the thing that disturbed me the most was they spent so much time doing car chases and wrecking cars, and well, they wrecked the airplane, and it they really took up 2 hours, and really the car chase wasn't really that enjoyable. Just wonder if they could have made a few bucks if they had cut that out. KF5 TSK, back to net.
Okay, KG5BZW, Jay, go ahead.
KG5BZW. It was, an interesting film. Definitely. I really think that the idea that this was one of the worst films ever made was really more of a kind of a snub at George Lucas, just because of the popularity of, some of his other franchises that he's involved with, and they just like to rub his nose in this, so-called failure. I wanted to enjoy it. I did want to enjoy it. I think that I did, though. enjoy it even for its, so-called badness. It was just a silly, kind of stupid film. It had its moments, but I don't know. Sometimes humor is hit or miss for a lot. And it's funny because I say that. I think I am the kind of person to enjoy literal humor. Love Airplane and all that jazz. I thought that the joke here was just a little bit, I don't know, maybe a little too obvious. I don't know. There's just so many of them. They're so, yeah, okay, we get it. So, I don't know if it was just this part of it's just the source material or what. I think I have a feeling a bit of it is, but I don't know. I don't know. I really can't say. I've never read the comics, or if I did, I've already forgotten about it. Yeah, I did love the twist in the middle. That was kind of interesting. It's funny how I'm like last movie I said it was two different movies, 2 or 3 different movies kind of pasted together awkwardly. This wasn't awkward. It was just weird and unpredictable. That was actually kind of fun. But I really wish that it was more funny. For me, it wasn't that particularly funny. It had its moments. It can be enjoyed. I probably will watch it again. But it'll be something where I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds fun. This is not really, whatever. Nothing. If nothing else appeals, which is like most things, of course, but just it'll be down the list. Let's just put it that. And that's all I have to say. I didn't really address the plot, but kind of addressed the whole movie. There's not much to say, really. It doesn't make that much sense anyway. KG5BCW, back to that.
Okay, K5EVS, Eric. K5EVS, Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. K5EVS. We had a lizard emergency in the house. A lizard had gotten in the house. So the ladies needed me to take care of that. Yes, Howard the Duck. When I texted Michael to be reminded of what was the movie this week, I was like, oh man, I remember that. I love that movie. It was very nostalgic for me. I remember being very young and being dropped off to watch this film, happened a lot when I was a kid. I can't believe my parents let me watch it when I did. I watched it again probably about halfway. I didn't get through all of it, and the version I saw had some commentary on it, which was kind of fun. It just brought, I think somebody earlier, I think it was Tony, very heartwarming. It was heartwarming in a very nostalgic way for me, and I loved it when I was much younger, and I thought it was fun watching it again. Back to net control.
Alrighty, KE5ICX, Tom.
Okay, I'm not sure what I saw. Everybody else saw a movie I guess I didn't see, and they had happy moments and enjoyed the film. And yes, I saw the film when I was younger too, yesterday for the first time, and I was younger yesterday. So I have to admit, time makes it better. and I feel like I did see a movie yesterday, and I'm thinking about it today. So I thought, what does this remind me of? How can I bring something out of this that really makes sense to me? So I was thinking Chips, the television series, is a good choice. You know, Ponch and John, they're driving along on their motorcycles, and have you ever noticed that when everybody's, driving down the road, they're driving erratically on the 12-lane highway, driving 2 miles an hour, and then they have this multi-car pileup, millions of cars heaped upon other cars, and then Ponch and John have to figure out how to make it happen. Did you know that they don't actually ride together? That Chips cops actually ride separately, not together as teams like Adam, whatever it was. So while I went to my happy place thinking about the show and the disco theme in the 3rd season as opposed to the 1st and 2nd season, which is much more serious, it had kind of that disco beat thing, I realized that somehow or another I had stopped thinking about Howard the Duck because I couldn't figure out what it was. I didn't know if it was a comedy. I wasn't sure, and then finally today the thing came up and said it's a comedy. So I'm cool with that. I guess it's a comedy. The jokes were kind of pedestrian to me, but, I like to yell at people to stay off my grass, too. I don't know, let's see, way overproduced special effects, I thought. We'll get to that. Plot-wise, I think the fun part was the sushi barbecue joint was kind of fun, or whatever that was. That was cool. And then having Ferris Bueller's principal in it was pretty good as the evil alien overlord. That was fun. Now, I enjoyed that a lot. He was great. I kept thinking of that scene from, what was the other movie? Men in Black. Almost the same kind of character, but I don't know which one came first. I think Men in Black did. The story was rather pedestrian with the final ending that you would expect. Yes, there was the Angles kind of look-alike group and everything doing their thing at the very end, which is what you expect with a freeze frame. Which, by the way, Ponch and John always had a freeze frame too. Right at the very end, they'd be laughing in an exaggerated way to indicate it was the end of the episode. Really, really good stuff. So, there were lots of people in it. Tim Robbins was in it. I don't remember where. He was pretty cool, I guess. But that's characterization. Let's not go there. I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity to talk about the 15 people that were in this film. So, that's it. I thought it was very George Lucas. I had a bad feeling about it, and I was right. Back to Net Control, KE5ICX.
Alrighty then, WT9V, Michael.
Okay, so first, Mr. Tom, and I'm really surprised that you must still be off after your near brush with death last weekend. Men in Black was in 1997, so this one was first. That's where the monster came from, I guess. And like I told you last night, this is clearly just a film about sex, ducks, and rock and roll. Maybe I would have gotten more out of it initially if I'd seen the comic book, but I didn't. So I just took it as a funny thing with a whole bunch of funny lines in it, and kind of enjoyed myself. As far as a plot, which I think we're actually supposed to be talking about the plot. I don't know if anybody actually talked about the plot. I think it was mostly either whether we liked it or not, which kind of we've gotten into in the past, but especially last week. But anyway, I don't know that it had a plot. But it was funny. I laughed. Maybe you should watch it again now that you're older. WT9V.
Okay, I understand I have KG5PMN on Echolink. James, did you want to check in? Did you want to talk?
Echo Gold 5, Papa Mike November, James up here in Oklahoma. I did not see the movie. I'll just be listening. Back to the net, KG5PMN.
Great. Well, welcome. And if you feel like jumping in at any time later, you can do that if you have some comments. Next, N5BB. Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Brenda. This is N5BB. Well, I saw the movie a number of years ago. It was years after the introduction. I did not see it at first release, so I probably saw it, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Got to remember, this movie came out, 33 years ago. quite a ways back there. And as Michael pointed out, like 11 years before Men in Black. What I remember of the movie, as far as the plot, was it being inconsistent and just goofy and silly. So I think I may have liked it as a comic book, which I never saw, but I might have liked that much better than seeing it as this movie. So I thought that the plot device to get, number one, this is such a made-up thing. I mean, it's not even fiction. It's comic book fiction. It's a creature from another planet that's similar to Earth, that can breathe Earth air, that can deal with Earth's gravity, that's roughly the size of a human, that can somehow speak English, and that looks like a duck, that gets transported here by some bad science experiment that's kind of unexplainable. Plot doesn't hold together. The plot's like a comic book plot. And I don't know. I didn't think that the production was consistent. I think they had all kinds of different actors actually in the duck. And the voice was dubbed later. So the whole thing just didn't tie together very well for me. As has already been pointed out, there were mindless chase scenes that had nothing to do with the plot, the main plot. And I don't know. Just a bunch of mess on the screen. I guess that's what I'd call it. I guess there were some things in it that were cute. I don't know about funny. Maybe a few little things were cute. But the thing I do remember after seeing it the first time, or the only time, is that I did not want to see it again or own it. N5BB.
Alrighty, this is Dave B50ZL, and it is my turn. Yeah, I was really young too when it first came out. In 1986, my children were like 5 and 8, and we pretty much went to every movie there was because they loved movies, and it was such a good decade for the kind of movies a kid would like. But my kids looked at the previews and said, "Oh, I think they thought it was a kids' movie or something." They had no desire to see it, so I never saw it, and wasn't impressed with the previews. It looked just a little too stupid. I'll just say that. However, watching it now, you know, I can relax and enjoy the campiness of it, and some of the silliness, some of the, I wouldn't say it's a bright or brilliant movie, but it's cute, and it's entertaining, and I think it's watchable. Now, the plot was kind of dumb, a lot of holes in it. You really had to suspend belief to even buy the whole story. And a lot of time was wasted in silly chase scenes and fight scenes and things like that, which I think they could have done better with the story if they hadn't had so much gratuitous violence. It was a comic book, and apparently a successful one, and they adapted it to the screen. I don't know anything about the comic book, so if any of you have read those comic books, I'd like to get your take on it as to how it relates and what the appeal was. You think there must be some reason why. I think we were not even aware it was a George Lucas movie. My kids might have wanted to see it if they had known it at the time. But I don't think Lucas had much to do with it, frankly. And even if he had, I'm not sure it would have been much better. He really had a spotty resume so far as making movies good or not making them good. So there were some touches that were just kind of funny, like there were a bunch of roasted ducks hanging from the ceiling in the diner. Why? I don't know. You wouldn't see that normally. Or the Cajun sushi. Well, that was kind of funny. And just little touches here and there that you might not catch if you didn't pay attention. I'm not going to watch it again to go and see all of those. Okay, do we have any more check-ins?
November 5 Sierra, Quebec Alpha.
N5 SQA, Ron, do you want to put in your 2 cents worth over the movie?
No, I just came back into the shack and heard you guys on still, and so I said I'll check in, but I have no idea what movie you watched or what's going on, so I'm just in for the count. N5 SQA, have a great evening.
Okay, we're watching Howard the Duck, so feel free to jump in with comments at any time. All right, we're going to talk about characters. So let's go back to the top. Tony, NT5TM. Go ahead.
Hey, well, I have to clarify here that we're a little biased because Aaron and I both had the hots for Lee Thompson. But Lee Thompson and Tim Robbins really did actually kind of have difficult roles to play here. They had to be over the top, but again, this was the 80s, so they had to be very earnest and believable and sincere. So in a way, it was kind of like, according to Aaron, Little Shop of Horrors, where the characters were really sort of weird and unbelievable, but also had to be very sincere, and we had to buy what they were saying because, you put your heart into growing this alien plant from outer space that wants to destroy the world. And you really do love this duck that came from an outer space telescope and is, struggling to save itself. So there were these, very stock characters from 80s movies. We had the quirky girl, the nerdy guy, but there were really a lot of little touches that Aaron hit on that differentiated all the individuals. Filzy is very ambitious, even though he's a janitor, and he's a little bit two-faced. He calls the cops fascists because they took his baseball cap, but then he excitedly tells Howard he's going to have a criminal record. I'm a revolutionary, I have a criminal record. He even at one point screams to the cops, Howard is a terrorist, he's being held hostage. Despite that he helped put that ultralight plane together and helped Howard escape. you know, they're really just they're great 80s stock characters. Beverly, of course, Lee Thompson is cute and fun, and there are little touches. She sleeps in a pile of moving blankets. She pretends to seduce Howard. She snorts and giggles at the nexus of Summonus. Dr. Jennings and the Dark Overlord of the Universe have great little touches. I'm probably finished. These experiments weren't authorized. They're probably going to blame me. And then the demon comes back and takes them over. It's such a real thing someone might say right before the demon ate their soul, worrying about their job. Of course, the demon from the Dark Overlord, the Nexus of Summonus, is a standard villain, but is funny and nasty. He laughs when Howard gets hurt. He laughs when Howard falls off the serving line at the sushi restaurant. It's just, a big villain doesn't normally stoop to such little sadism, so it was fun that he did. And Aaron was really struck by the waitress at that Cajun sushi restaurant, too. This was not a character that was critical to the plot, but yet she was quirky, she had her own personality, she talked about hostility being like a boomerang, but yet she could still laugh at the fights that always broke out at the restaurant. The random band characters, Richie and Ginger, and Space Rabies. There were so many characters in this movie, but they were all given their own little touches, and that's part of what made it so much fun for Aaron and I. NT5TM.
Okay, W5TXX. Jake, characters.
Well, as with any 80s movie, all the characters are over-exaggerated and overacted, and it's an 80s movie. Like that was the formula for an 80s movie, was you had all these characters and they were over-exaggerated, and that's just how it was. Leah Thompson, again, I was a young man during the time period that I watched this movie, and I had the hots for Leah Thompson. I still do to this day. But she was probably my favorite character, even over Howard, in the movie, and she way overacted her parts. Funny fact about Leah Thompson for this movie: she actually practiced and learned how to play guitar, and she would, from the time she got up until the time that she went to bed, she was either acting or practicing guitar so that she could use her guitar skills during the scenes where she was actually playing music. And then another funny character thing, the gentleman that was inside of the duck suit, Ed Gale. This movie actually ended up getting Ed Gale a appearance in Mel, what's his name, Spaceballs movie. He was casted because of this movie as a dink. So, yeah, the movie was overacted and the characters were over-exaggerated, but it was an 80s movie. So back to the net, W5TXX.
K5ANE, Kane.
I definitely have to agree with earlier comments. They managed to have a lot of characters that all had interesting little differences about them. I can't really say that they were always deep characters with lots of, whatever, but they all definitely seem to have their own little quirks and their own little parts of the movie. I definitely feel that, I forget her name, the main female lead, she did an excellent job with the part, and I feel that she was a fairly believable kind of character in this whole thing. I mean, as believable as it is as far as how you would think you would react when a duck falls from outer space outside your the place where you go play music. So, in the end, I feel like they did an excellent job, though, with Howard the Duck, which kind of plays into the whole special effects. But they really did an excellent job with the outfit and the suit and the maneuverability and the facial expressions, and they really managed to do a great job on making him more than just a person in a suit running around, especially for 1980s kind of thing. So that they didn't have CGI going on, really good CGI going on. This was all just kind of animatronic puppet helmet thing going on. So pretty good work for that as far as being able to showcase facial expressions and things of that nature. So yeah, hats off to them for working hard and making that seem realistic in a way, as much as a humanoid duck can be realistic. This is K5ANE, back to Net Control.
All right, KF5TSK Burl.
This is KF5TSK. Well, as I look at the movie, if it wasn't for Howard the Duck, there wouldn't be Ted 1 and 2. I mean, some of the acting was good, but having a fight with 3 full-size men and there's just multiple scenes where it just didn't look real. That he just happened to pick up a stick or something, but it didn't really look like he actually did anything. It was like, well, I'm just going to make it seem as though this is how it should have happened. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie was watching them dance. I was like, that, is really, this was really at the end, but I just enjoyed it. It was something I really didn't expect. KF5TSK, back to Net.
Okay, next, KG5BZWJ.
KG5BZW. I'm not really sure I've got anything else to say. I do think, I'm not quite sure. I didn't quite. Ed Gale was maybe the guy in the suit for the most part. But you look at the cast and it's like, you have to actually dig into it. It's like, okay, well, I guess they created the animatronics whenever that was needed. And I've got Kim Rose, who was Admiral Akbar, in the original Star Wars, and Chip Zien, Z-I-E-N. I don't know how to pronounce which, I don't know, was the voice? Regardless, what I'm trying to say is, I thought for the material that was given, I thought they did a good job. Like I said, for the material given, they aren't going to win the Academy Awards. Leah Thompson, she kind of held the story together, what was there. Tim Robbins was a little all over the place, but hey, whatever. It again, material, it's hard to talk about actors when the whole plot is just so outlandish. I have to admit, I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia or something. I like Jeffrey Jones as Walter Jennings. It probably is nostalgia. It's just something about. I like the fact of seeing it pings something in my brain. It's like, oh, I recognize that actor. Yes, and he didn't do too bad a job as actor's name for his Dr. Let's call it really is a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and kind of thing. I'm not even going to the actual original book. I'm just, in movies or whatever. I don't really have anything else to say. So I'll leave it at that. KG5EW.
All right, K5EVS, Eric.
Lizard emergency averted. Characterization. I don't know how many billions of movies Jeffrey Jones has been in, and I probably couldn't name another one off the top of my head, but he's like one of those characters that, he's one of those dudes that just show up in a lot of movies, it seems, for me. And I don't know, I thought he was great in it. Like they're at the diner, he's just like that blank stuff, and Howard the Duck, the most awesome character in the film. So I thought they did a good job. I think somebody said they had to kind of be over the top and also not too crazy at the same time. It was challenging roles all around. Silly movie, cool movie. I thought everybody did a good job. K5 EVS.
W5TXX comment.
Go ahead, W5TXX. Go ahead, Jake.
Well, just 3 words for you if you can't remember who or what movies he was from. 3 words for you. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Back to the net control. W5TXX.
Yes, he was in that, and also The Hunt for Red October, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He's made a living out of being a character actor, and so we all say, oh yeah, it's him. Okay, KE5ICX. Tom, go ahead.
Well, considering the fact that I fell asleep through many parts of the film yesterday when I was younger, maybe when I'm older I can appreciate it more. But yes, thank you. I saw the Jeffrey Jones thing here, and yeah, the character actor things that he's done through the years. And he did that, of course, in this film as well. And I thought he was really good. I didn't know that Beetlejuice came out not Beetlejuice, the other one, Men in Black came out in 1991. I think they definitely channeled his character from this movie for that movie more humorously, I thought. But in any case, I kind of liked it. I don't have a lot to say simply because I was just kind of like sailing along, watching the film, thinking about another episode of ships and how you could like protect us from evil on motorcycles. So I'm going to defer to the more intelligent in this group, since I can't remember much about the characters. Although Leela Thompson was pretty good as Beverly Switzler. By the way, if you go and look her Beverly Switzler up, she's quite the character in the comic book. Very support person for Howard through the entire thing, way above and beyond, including springing him from an insane asylum. Back to you, KE5I6.
Yeah, Alice, she looks 12. But then we saw her the next year in Back to the Future, and what a wonderful movie that was. WT9V, Michael, go ahead.
Do I have to? Fine, either way. I'm not really sure what there is to say other than, what's already been said. It's, I thought, I did have a little trouble buying the whole love interest story, Yeah, I don't know what I can say on the air about this that has not already been said or might get me in trouble, one of the two. So,
I give up. WT9V.
Okay, N5BB, Bill, go ahead.
Oh, you caught me away from the radio. I guess I don't have a lot more to say, so I'll leave it at that. N5BB.
Okay, well that's the end of it. So it's my turn. So much has been said already. I don't know what else to say about the characters. One character we have not mentioned and contributed a lot to this movie is the musician, the composer, John Barry, who maybe you don't think you know who is him, but he did the music from Dances with Wolves and Out of Africa, Born Free, A View to a Kill. So he is really a good composer, and I think the music in this truly enhanced the movie because, you know, he's a master, and I thought the music was pretty good, and in most places it was appropriate. I think everything else has been said about characters. I don't want to just beat the horse. So, any new check-ins? WB50ZL.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen and Garland.
I'm sorry, come again?
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen and Garland.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen, welcome to the net. We're talking about the movie Howard the Duck. Would you like to make any comments?
Well, I did see the movie when it first came out, and I saw it again here today. And I agree with you that the music to the movie was a major component. And just as a lighthearted comedy, I greatly enjoyed the movie. I did not think it was a dud. Yes, there were gaping plot holes and whatnot, but it wasn't meant to be a serious work of science fiction. And back to net, NG5Y.
Okay, well, let's move on to special effects. We'll start with Tony, NC5TM. Go ahead.
Hey, Brenda, thank you. I'd also like to thank the members of the Academy and Erin who gave me this really incredibly dense set of notes. And if I haven't summarized it perfectly, she's laughing at me. That's my fault. Something she has here, which is really good, is that compared with, you know, other crappy special effects in the movie, you know, when the aliens, dark overlords, are actually coming down in the laser beam, Howard himself looks pretty good. He's able to have enough facial expressions that the different actors and puppeteers who worked on Howard could actually use them. And at the time, Howard was made fun of for being really wooden and fake. But nowadays, we all look at Howard and go, he's not CGI, oh thank goodness. And yeah, actually, I mean, a puppet, you know, opticals never look worse. CGI always ages badly. Admittedly, not a special effect, but a great running gag was that Erin and I have both talked about was that they never got over the fact that Howard was a talking duck. In some shows, people just seem to take for granted, like a dog walks up to you and says you're under arrest. No, really, that's impossible. I don't expect a dog to say anything to me. They're dogs. of the fact that no one at any point in the movie ever gets over the fact that there's a talking duck is a wonderful running gag. The musical themes were pretty good. Aaron and I both thought the score was very supportive, and along the lines of score, Aaron would like to point out that Jeffrey Jones was also Emperor Joseph II in Amadeus. You know, Amadeus. Amadeus. You know, come on, and rock me, Amadeus. Another fun special effect is that there is a classic Wilhelm scream when Howard is dive bombing the duck hunters in his ultralight. That's a wonderful little Easter egg. And Erin would like to add, because she is the expert bird watcher, that the duck hunters are using pintail duck decoys, and they seem to be hunting pintails, but they're using quacky mallard duck calls. That would not work on pintails because pintails do not quack, they whistle. Pintails do not quack, they make cute little whistles. NT5, TM.
Okay, well that is very helpful information. Okay, W5TXX Jake, go ahead.
Well, special effects. All right. So, I read a whole bunch of stuff about this movie preparing for tonight because I was very excited about this movie. George Lucas originally wanted the film to be animated, but because Universal needed a box office hit for 1986, there was not enough time for the movie to be made animated. So Lucas said, well, we can make a robot and we'll make it happen. So they made it happen. The Dark Overlord was actually created as stop motion, was created by one of the guys that worked later on in the 90s on Jurassic Park. And funny little note, in the credits of the movie, he was listed as the dinosaur supervisor, which was maybe a prequel to what his later job would be. Another thing with special effects, the suit that they made for Howard was extremely complicated. The wires and batteries and motors and everything were all self-contained in the suit, so it made it very difficult to control. It actually required 4 puppeteers working in unison to make all the facial expressions and everything happen at the right times. So that was really cool. They really went over, and did their work on that to make it look as realistic as possible. And for the 80s, I believe that was actually a feat well done. Back to net control, W5TXX.
Okay, K5ANE, Kane.
Yeah, so the helmet part of the suit was incredible for a 1980s animatronic kind of setup. I think they did an excellent job with that and just really nailed it. Spending 2 sections of this net talking about how impressive it was for this 1980s movie, especially considering now hearing that, they were on somewhat of a time crunch in a way. They wanted to have it animated, but they needed to hurry up and get it out. So yeah, that's super cool knowing that about the movie and seeing that. Of course, this is the 1980s, so for a lot of the bigger flicks of the day, a lot of practical effects being used and just not a ton of, crazy, weird special effects things going on. It's just lots of real places and real scenes with real people having, doing real things. So a lot of the views and scenes and things like that were very, very believable. Although it really kind of started to fall apart with the stop motion monster scene to me. But this movie that, for the most part had these, pretty real sets and things like that, and then suddenly they're, having to do this kind of an overlay of the monster in the frame, and it just seemed like the difference in grain in the film on their overlay wasn't the same, the lighting wasn't the same. It just looked really out of place in the scene and just really kind of fake. So it almost kind of seemed like maybe they're running out of budget or something like that and just needed to quickly get this monster thing in here. Which is kind of sad, because it seemed like they definitely, spared no expense when it came to producing this movie otherwise. So it's kind of strange seeing this kind of cheaply done scene with the alien monsters, but everything else is pretty top notch for 1980s. So yeah, that's how I feel about the special effects. And one last thing that I definitely need to throw out. They probably went a little bit too far with the special effects right at the very beginning there when they show him being torn through the apartment scene, and there's that nude duck lady, and it's, oh gosh, it really kind of creeped me out there. That's very strange. K5 A&E.
Okay, KF5 TSK, Merle.
That's KF5 TSK. Well, the thing that bothered me most about the movie was this dark overlord, the monster that he eventually turned into. When he was in the diner, he didn't need to eat human food. He had this big thing about getting energy from the power plant, from plugging into the cigarette lighter, and he becomes this monster with all these, this mouth and these, long teeth, and I was like, I would say probably the first time I saw it, I didn't enjoy monster movies, and it was like this movie. They said, "Oh, we need to throw some monsters in and have some comedy, and we'll have fights and car crashes, and if you were thinking about seeing a movie, it was like, this is just a mixture of everything." K5 TSK, back to net.
Okay, KT5 BZWJ, go ahead.
KG5 BGW. Well, special effects, yes, there's a lot to talk about, the ultralight aircraft scenes, car chase scenes, of course. I mean, I guess those are fine. I guess. Golly, there was actually a lot of unbelievable stuff to that, but now that's just the whole film. As far as the monster goes, at the very end, okay, besides the fact that they first say that, the monster needs a human to infect or whatever to exist, and then he just all of a sudden pops into existence in this more terrifying form, and that's not really explained. Okay, besides that, I actually like that segment, but maybe it's just because it also reminds me of, some old, the old Star Wars segments before they redid them in CGI, and a lot of the, let's just face it, a lot of these, even the 80s, I will say, I don't think they really figured out some of the lighting aspects of shots until maybe the 90s, because some of those, the Jurassic Park shots, you think they're going to be, they're CGI, but they are actually practical effects, and Jurassic Park was really good at that. Yes, Jordan, with I think I agree that there was some lighting issue with that. in this film. I'm just saying that as far as practical effects goes, I think they were still learning. Did I say Star Trek? I sure as hope Star Wars. I'm getting tired. There's some goofiness in the original film, but there's something that's enjoyable about it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's nostalgia, but I don't know. I haven't even mentioned the music, but the music's good. I feel like I'm taking other people's time. I don't know. There really is a lot to say here, but you can say, but I don't really think I have the intellect to really get into something real deep before, pouring all the tears. Because that's probably part of the reason this was a flop, was they spent so much on special effects and they just didn't make it up. If they just been a little bit cheaper on that, maybe history will have reflected better on it. I don't know. Who knows? KG5ECW. Back to now.
W5TXX comment.
Okay, K5EVS, Eric.
I think TXX had a recheck there. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't hear. W5TXX. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to comment real quick. It's funny that you mentioned Star Wars. Phil Tippett was the designer and stop-motion animatronics guy that did the Dark Overlord for this movie. And later on, a few years later, he was actually hired to do the stop-motion animatronics for Return of the Jedi. When Luke is down in the pit and the monster's coming to eat him, that was his work. So kind of a tie-in there with Star Wars and Howard the Duck. Back to the net, W5TXX.
Oh, interesting. Okay. K5EVS, Eric, go ahead.
Alrighty. Actually, I had Star Wars on my mind myself. I think George Lucas figured out a thing or two, successfully pulling off, some of that stuff previously. So, I thought the same thing. I thought that there was enough flexibility for some expressions and such for Howard, and it's 1986, I think. Mid-'80s effects were, that's probably why they're so over budget, right? The effects were good. For 1986, just that, the opening scene, the planets are all looking very fake. The beams coming out, as he gets sucked out and then sucked back into the Earth planet. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say that hasn't been said. I thought it was good. I thought it was in line with everything else in the movie. For a movie that has this is the worst movie of all time, it's actually pretty good as far as I'm concerned. So, back to net control, K5EVS.
Okay, Tom, KE5ICX, go.
Well, let's see, special effects. Yeah, it was pretty good. Check the boxes type of thing. Yeah, there was the forced perspective on the projector, telescopy thingy, whatever it is that they had, and the otherworldly thing was okay. I liked the duck world was fun. That was interesting. I enjoyed that. Some of the facades and things were cute. It's not a little bit forced, but not too bad. I enjoyed that. Visually, it was okay. I kind of, that kept my interest while I was in this kind of confused state watching this film, trying to understand what the whole deal was with it. It took about halfway through the film for me to realize it was a comedy, but in any case, you know, that's kind of the way it is. Music, yeah, you decided to go ahead and emote over John Barry. Well, John Barry was a wonderful composer. He is known for all the movies that you mentioned, but mostly he's known for the Bond films. He created the Bond sound. And if you listen carefully, you kind of get a little bit of that. So, yeah, and I think one of his last films, I don't remember, Somewhere in Time, which everybody hated. He did the score for that one as well, but in any case. Anything else I can say about the movie itself and special effects? No, not really. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of sleight of hands. There was a little far less in the special effects digital department, which is fine by me. I think sometimes that's overdone. And George Lucas, of all people, is the person who personifies overdone. So he hasn't had a chance to take and redo this film. I'm sure if he does, it'll look like, you know, Attack the Clones or something by the time it's all over, and you won't be able to recognize the film. Nor will you be able to see the actors because they will be completely crammed out of the picture from new special effects added to the special director's edition. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Alrighty, WT9V, go ahead.
Well, I have a couple of minor comments. The duck lady wasn't nude. She was wearing feathers. The fact that she had human-style breasts was the weird part for me. Of course, there was also the Play Duck magazine centerfold. So I guess we had a preview of what was coming. And the comments Jake, I think, made about the animatronics in Howard's costume made me think about Dinosaurs, which came out in 1991 and had even more more excited. There were like 2 or 3 animators for like each dinosaur head. It was crazy, or puppeteers, or whatever you want to call it. You know, because I heard a couple of stories, you know, about once in a while those things would overheat and their heads would catch on fire, which was, you know, always kind of exciting during filming. So hopefully Howard's head didn't catch on fire, because that would have been disconcerting, one would think, especially for the guy inside. And just, you know, as a closing thought about how wonderful this movie was, Howard was in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, talk about a tribute. WT9P.
Alrighty, N5BB. Go ahead, Bill.
Yep, as I said, I have no more comments. Thanks, N5BB.
Oh, okay. The end of the list, and that's the end of the show. Good night, everybody. Okay. If you have anything else to say, go ahead and give me your call sign, and you can talk about anything you want. I haven't talked about special effects. You know, when you go last, everybody said everything. There's nothing else to say other than, yeah, it sure had a lot of it. I will say that final scene was in the Naval Institution installation and in San Francisco. So that's real stuff that the Navy has. I don't know what they're doing with it, but at least they're on our side. And, okay, if you have more comments, please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
WT9V.
W5TXX.
Did we lose net control?
Okay, well, I guess that's all the takers. NT5TM. Tony, go ahead.
Well, maybe Erin and I have been doing too much too, but she did want me to pass along her comment that, I mean, there are people who legitimately think this was the worst movie ever made. And, well, no, it's not going to win Best Picture. It is just a goofy, silly, fun movie. So if you are one of those people who is listening and not checked in, who thinks this is the worst movie ever made, or if you, the checked-in stations, hear a friend thinks this is the worst movie ever made, please correct them and urge them to just give it another chance. It's just a silly movie, and it's a lot of fun. NT5TM.
Brenda? Well, I'm going to pretend like Brenda. I think we've been abandoned. But, Tom, you heard Tony. It's a funny, silly movie. You're a funny, silly guy. I mean, you and the movie should get along beautifully. So, you should give it another chance. Maybe wait until you're feeling better and you're another week older. Or maybe Wednesday. Are you glaring at the... Tom's glaring at the camera. Of course, there is a time delay. But, yeah, so, I wonder if Brenda's back yet. If Brenda's not back yet, then Jake. I'll give it to Jake, and if Jake can, vamp long enough for Brenda to get back from wherever Brenda went. WT9V over to W5TXX.
Well, I have one last little known fact about the movie. So if Howard the Duck had not been a hit, or had been a hit, Pixar probably would not exist. I'm going to read off something here, so I'll take a break and then I'll start again. So from my research over the movie before this evening's discussion, this little known fact, during the filming of this movie, or shortly before the filming of this movie, George Lucas went through a divorce and was reeling from that divorce in debt and whatnot, and he hoped that the profits from Howard the Duck would improve his financial situation. Instead, the horrible box office caused him to have to sell off some of his assets. At the time, he owned an up-and-coming computer animation division within Lucasfilm, and with the aid of Apple CEO Steve Jobs and several employees from that department, they created the spin-off corporation. Together, they paid a total of $10 million to then create Pixar Animation Studios. Back to Net Control, W5TXX.
All right. Who else wants to say something? Michael, are you finished, WT9B?
I took over when you abandoned us. So, yes. Of course, the fact that you don't know that I was extolling Tom to follow Tony's advice and give the movie a chance tells us something. Where you been? WT9V.
difficult. Anybody else want to say something?
K5A&E.
K5A&E. Go ahead, Kane.
This definitely doesn't have anything to do with the movie, but just more of the net in general. I'm really glad that I found this net and that I found you guys to talk to, because I probably wouldn't have ended up seeing this movie, despite it being a movie that I wanted to see as a kid a long, long time ago. And it definitely isn't the first time that it's happened for me. So love this net. I love hanging out with you guys, watching old movies that nobody else cares to watch anymore. This is K5A&E, back to net control.
W5FT.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is like the high point of my week. That may seem pathetic, but it's such a great way to wind up the week, talking about old movies and hanging out with some really smart people. And I just enjoy the heck out of it. Who else has a comment? Well, alrighty then. I think we'll move into a discussion of next week. Tom, let us know what we're going to do.
All right, ladies and germs, please write this down. Next week's movie is the 1958 classic, Invasion of the Saucermen. Back to net control, KE5ICX.
Is that in black and white?
Yes, indeed.
Well, okay then. All right. I'm going to end the net. You don't have to go. You can stay here and talk all night long if you want to. But this is WB5OZL ending the net.
Invasion of the Saucermen, a 1958 sci-fi classic in black and white. Gosh, that definitely sounds like a stinker to me. K5A&E.
W5TXX, and it's available for free on YouTube.
Which is probably why we're going to be watching it. WT9V.
You always know it's going to be a great one when the rights holders just don't even bother to say, yeah, I made that movie and that's under my copyright, to take it down. It's like, no, they don't even want to be affiliated with it. It's just like, somebody put it up there. Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, the poster from it is hilarious. These big-headed, bug-eyed monsters. And of course one is holding this scantily clad human woman that for some reason he's attracted to. I don't know what it is about aliens and hot chicks. Posters in color. I wonder if the movie is.
W5TXX. Actually, I queued up the movie, and it is in black and white and boxed like the old TVs. So have fun watching it.
W5OZL has Frank Gorshin in it. Yay. I don't know these other people. We'll probably recognize them when we see them. They were probably in every other 50s movie that there ever was.
We should make Jake do net control next week. What do you say, Jake? Want to be net control? WT9V.
Well, considering that, let's see, this month I have one more I think this week, this Wednesday, I have the last one for this month of Beginner's Net. Sure, why not?
That was easy. That was almost too easy. But, okay, great. Tom, put him down. He's in the bucket next week.
He's in the barrel. I got him there. So, Jake, you got it, bud. KE5ICX.
I love this. It's the teenagers, not the military, who defeat the aliens when they discover that the saucer's occupants cannot stand the glare from their car's bright headlights. That's original.
Sorry, you were covered over by Tom at the beginning, who was appointing Jake as next week's NCS. I'm going to lean on Eric next time. WT9V.
Yay, that's great. Okay, what I was saying is, in the synopsis, the teenagers discover the aliens can't stand the glare of their car's headlights, and that's how they defeat them. Wow.
By the way, for anybody that's listening, this coming Wednesday is the Beginner's Net on the Richardson Wireless repeater. Love to have you guys there. Come and hang out, talk over some topics with some newbie amateur radio operators, and yeah, that'd be great. W5TXX.
What time is that?
That is 8 p.m. Central on the K5 RWK repeater.
Does it last an hour?
Actually, less than an hour. Yeah, I think our longest running was 42 minutes so far. So we've had three iterations of it so far. So it's a fairly new net, and it's gaining more traction. We're getting more people and more interest in it. So yeah, it's my baby. I came up with the idea about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, somewhere in there, and Michael was like, "Do it!" And so we did it. So yeah, W5TXX.
I've been meaning to check out that net. Hopefully I'll check in this week. Catch you later. This is K5ANE. I'll be clear.
I missed the details. Would you say again the date, the day of the week, time, and frequency in 5BB?
Yes, sir. So it is this coming Wednesday. We do it on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Central on the 146.12 repeater, I believe it is, the K5 RWK repeater. And it's the Beginner's Net. So it is geared towards helping new amateur radio operators get the knowledge they need or answers to questions that they may have. So even if you're not a new operator, you may have some knowledge that some of the new guys may need. So it's always good to have people that are very knowledgeable check in to help facilitate those answers. W5TXX.
147.12. Just in case anybody out there was wondering.
There you go.
Oh, I noticed the difference there, Michael.